ahead and say, we are down a member in case you didn't notice. Nick is on vacation. He went to Florida this week to be with his family for the reunion and stuff. So if you could just be in prayer for him and travels and safety and whatnot, because we miss him. If you guys will go ahead and stand up, we're going to get started and we're going to go ahead and worship.
Speak in Passion City, and she brought up a very interesting thing. She talked about plankton, and she talked about how, from the surface, plankton look like very useless creatures, because we think of plankton being there just as being food for other bigger fish. They are so small that they can't even swim against the current. But she said that she did more research on it because she said that God spoke to her and said, why would I create something so useless? So she did more research, and she found that plankton actually, they're born in the darkness, and then they migrate up to the surface of the water and photosynthesize, and they go back down into the darkness. And that migration, because there's so many of them, when they photosynthesize, it actually gives the earth over 50% of the oxygen that we have. And that was mind-blowing to me. I was like, oh my gosh. And what I got from that was, it doesn't matter how small you think you are or how unimportant. God can use the most smallest creature to make the biggest purpose. So sing with us. From the highest of heights to the depths of the sea, creation revealing your majesty. From the colors of fall to the fragrance of spring, every creature unique in the song that it sings.
new song. I'm sure many of you guys know it. The song says that there is power in the name of Jesus. And there is power in His name in what you're going through in your situations in your life right now. No matter what it is, whether it be stress from your job, family, the guy down the street, your neighbors ticking you off, it doesn't matter. There is power in His name, and there is power to cover you in your situation. He is there, and He loves us. And He wants us to just pour our hearts into Him and lean into Him more and more every day, and lean and rely on His power, because we can't do this alone. This is an easy song to learn, so just sing it with me. You'll get it in a couple tries.
There's power in the name of Jesus. There's power in the name of Jesus. There is power in the name of Jesus. power in the name of Jesus. Oh, there is power in the name of Jesus to break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. You break every chain, break every chain, break every chain. You were the Word at the beginning, one with God the Lord Most High. You were hidden glory in creation, now revealed in you are Christ. What a beautiful name it is! What a beautiful name it is! The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a beautiful name it is! Nothing compares to this. What a beautiful name it is! The name of Jesus. Didn't want heaven without us. Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great, your love is greater. What could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is! What a wonderful name it is! The name of Jesus Christ.
Lord, we thank you so much for your powerful name. We thank you that you are all powerful and that you are over every situation. Lord, thank you so much for your presence. Holy Spirit, thank you. Thank you for who you are. And I just pray that you would use Matthew this morning to speak to us. Prepare the hearts, Father. Open the hearts. And may we receive the blessing that you want to give us today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, guys. All right. You guys can be turning to Genesis chapter 5 this morning, and we're going to take a closer look at one guy's life, and it's some people that kind of look like him, but not exactly. So you can be turning to Genesis chapter 5. While you guys are doing that, I just want to make a quick announcement. If you didn't receive an email this week from Mary, an email was sent out about just prayer requests and things like that. If you're not getting those, Mary, wave at everybody real quick. If you're not getting an email, get your email address to Mary, and she'll make sure you get added to that prayer list. And if you ever have a prayer need, just email her. And if you're not online that much, if you want to jot it on a slip of paper, you can probably hand it to her. Make sure it's not hieroglyphics, but she can read it. Okay, and get that to her. And then anytime you get an update on your prayer request, make sure that you let us know that. So that way, because we're just going to keep that running list going. And so it's something you can pull up on your smartphone, something you can print out, stick in your Bible. You can be praying for each other all throughout the week. And whenever something happens, you can let us know, hey, this happened. And it's a praise, what you guys have been praying for, God moved, He did this. And that's an encouraging thing to know about. So we can bump that from the prayer request part to the praise report part, right? So, this morning, in Genesis chapter 5, I'm going to actually start, I've got Genesis 5:24 up there, but I want to start over here in, let's see here, in verse 21. We're going to start there. So it says, Enoch lived 65 years and became the father. We're going to go back from that, actually. We start too far. Methuselah lived 187 years. This is in chapter, I started right, 21. I apologize. Then Enoch walked with God 300 years after he became the father of Methuselah. That's in verse 22. He walked with God 300 years after he became the father of Methuselah. He had other sons and daughters, so all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. I want to show you a couple of observations here with Enoch. But the main thing I want you guys to see here is that Enoch was a God walker. He was a God walker. Look at where it says here. When you look through all this whole genealogy, you get to see the same kind of formula all around. If you look back in verse 18, Jared lived 162 years. He became the father of Enoch. Then Jared lived 800 years and became the father. After he became the father of Enoch, and he had other sons and daughters. So all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. And that's it. That same formula, again and again and again and again and again, until you get to Enoch. And when you get to Enoch, listen what it says. It doesn't even, everything is different about Enoch. Because whenever it says that he had a child, then it goes on and said that it says Enoch walked with God 300 years after he became the father of Methuselah. It doesn't even have the same terminology there when it says, and he lived so many years after. He didn't just live. He walked with God. Now, when you look at this, anytime you look and you see in the scriptures talking about walking, it's using that phrase figuratively. Obviously, it's not talking about, the disciples that were walking along to the road to Emmaus, and Jesus walked up beside them. Here, when it's talking about figuratively here, it has to do with one's conduct of living. So when it says there that Enoch walked with God for 300 years, what it's saying there is that his conduct of life was focused completely on God. That his whole focus and everything he desired to do was just to please and honor God. And then, after that, God cheated death. He cheated death out of Enoch. He said, I'm going to take him. I've got something for this guy. I'm going to save this one. And so he took Enoch out of this world, and it says that he was not. He was not, meaning that he wasn't found. And so obviously people went looking for him, and they didn't find him because God took him. It was very clear, very evident. That's what had happened. We see that one other time in the scriptures. We see that with Elijah, but we're not going there this morning. The focus of this morning's message is just this. Enoch was a God walker. Now, there's folks I want to kind of talk about this morning. In our churches, we've got folks who they sound like Enoch, they kind of look like Enoch, but they're not exactly like Enoch. And so we're going to just kind of describe a few things here this morning, and it's going to be something that's kind of in contrast to Enoch that I hope will kind of give you an idea more about what Enoch actually was. So the first one, we're just going to dive right into it. The first one is God listener. God listener. Oh, and by the way, if you're taking notes, cool. Okay, take notes. And if you're the devil, as one person said once, the devil hates it whenever God's people takes notes. And if you're not taking notes, take notes. All right? So, God listener. The first thing that you have there is these guys, they read, many of them I would say, they read their Bibles like nobody's business. I mean, they've been through that thing. And you and I, we would all be incredibly impressed if we only knew how much God listener read his Bible. So they've read that Bible. And they'll come up and they might say something. You might have heard them say, "Well, I've read through my Bible 6 times." Thank you. Now, God listener might say something like, "I've read my Bible 6 times through, and I'm about to start on the 7th time." Ma'am, I didn't study all week to be interrupted. It's okay. You can run down after. All right. Now, God listener might say something like, "I've read my Bible through 6 times, and I'm about to start on the 7th time." And they were like, they look at you like the guy at the weight room or the gym. You're like, "Do you even read, bro?" And so they're just like they're soaking it through. They're soaking it through, and they're reading through that Bible so much. But here's the thing: God listeners a lot like my kids. Okay, my kids are great listeners. They really are. They'll be doing something that'll be driving me insane. And I'll say, "Stop doing that." And you know what? They listen perfectly. They do. They listen perfectly. Problem is, they just keep doing what they were doing. I'll say, "Listen to what I'm saying." And they say, "I am." They say, and then so that's where it's kind of like the butt. And Matthew kind of rises up and said, "Okay, I'll catch him in this. Tell me, what did I say?" And they will. Verbatim. Doesn't mean exactly what I said. See, the thing is that when I told them to do something, they stopped at listen. That was the end of it then. That was their goal. That was it. They didn't go the extra step and do what I said. God listener looks in their Bible and they read and they see things that God's will is in there, and God's speaking to them. His word is right there and he's speaking to them. And you know what they say is, "I listen to what you said, God." He said, "You know what? I've listened 6 times, and I'm about to start listening for a 7th time. I've listened to your word. Okay, I've listened to what you said, but for whatever reason, it's not had that effect on their life." Now, if you look over, and you don't have to turn with me there, but I'm going to just switch over real quick. You can just listen. I'm going to be over in James. And listen how James describes this. He talks about and he words it very interesting. He says, "A forgetful hearer and an effectual doer." Listen what he says. He says, "Therefore, putting aside all filthiness and all that remains of wickedness and humility, receive the word implanted, which is able to save your souls. But prove yourselves doers of the word, not merely hearers who delude themselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he's like a man who looked at his natural face in a mirror. For once he looked at himself and has gone away, he has immediately forgotten what kind of person he was. But one who looks intently at the perfect law, the law of liberty, and abides by it, not having become a forgetful hearer." There it is again, forgetful hearer, but an effectual doer. "This man will be blessed in what he does." That's a cool promise, and so lock that one away. But think about this, guys. It's like you got up and you're standing there in front of the mirror, and you're all scruffy and you got wonky hair. I know Jamie deals with wonky hair all the time, and so. You get in there and your hair's just kind of just doing its own thing, it's its own person, and so you're about to start getting ready, and you decide, you know what, I would like to have a cup of coffee to take with me to work today. And so you run in there to kind of like go ahead and like program the Keurig and everything so that it's ready and it's actually not lava when you're trying to drink it as you're going out the door. And so you go out there and you do that, and then you go, and you realize just you get to a hurry, you throw your clothes on real quick, and you grab your coffee, and out the door you go. You look like a well-dressed homeless person. You forgot to take care of what you saw in the mirror. You're still scrappy, your head's still crazy. Ladies, you're in there and you're like, you've just started putting on your makeup, you're halfway done putting on your makeup, and you haven't blended yet, and that's important, okay? And you haven't even started on your hair yet. And so you're getting ready, and then you realize, like somebody calls you on the phone, and you realize what time it is. And so you just hurry and just grab everything you can. You put your clothes on, you grab your cream cheese bagel, and run out the door. You look like the deranged clown that's late to the birthday party. You've only got one eyebrow drawn on, like you still got some, it's just like, you forgot. You forgot to take care of what you saw in the mirror. Now here's the thing. This is so easy to do. Listen what he says there again in this passage there in James, okay? And if you're writing stuff down, it's James 1, and I'm looking at 23 and 24. But he says, if anyone's a hearer of the word and not a doer, he's like a man who looks at his natural face in the mirror. And when you look at that verse there, when he says looks, it's just a simple word that just means to observe or to perceive, to remark. But when you go and you look at the passage where when he says, but the one who looks intently at the perfect law, it's a little bit different. It's a different word in the Greek. And what it's talking about there is, it says literally it's like you stoop down to look at. And I remember I was reading this on my Bible, and I was doing it I was reading it on my phone, my Bible on my phone. I was doing exactly what the definition was saying. It said to look at with your head bowed forward. So that's exactly what I was doing. I was looking closely at it, meaning that I was doing a little bit more than just listening. I wasn't just looking at my Bible and just thinking about it, and just, I've read it, I've done that, and I've shut my Bible. So, tell me this. Is there any point, guys and girls, both appreciate this, but for guys, is there any point in rubbing on a bunch of shaving cream, just wash it back off again?
No.
No. There's no point in that. You know what? I did that lately. I did that recently. I put on a bunch of shaving cream and everything. I was about to shave, and it was a little bit close to the time whenever Rachel had just gotten out of the shower, so I didn't think there was any hot water left. And so I was rinsing the hot water. I was rinsing my hands off, getting ready to grab my razor and start shaving, and I could tell the water was warming up. I was like, oh. And I like to normally kind of warm my face a little bit, either just splash some hot water on it or put a hot towel on it to kind of, because I have little baby skin. I have to be careful with shaving and everything. And so I wanted to heat my face back up, so I washed it off. And I was like, this is weird. I've never done this before. That's because you put your shaving cream on with your hand and you take it off with a razor. If you don't take it off with a razor, then there was no point in putting it on in the first place. That's just how it is, right? Is that pretty simple? It's the same way when we get into our Bibles. It's not enough. There's no point. If I'm going to sit down and I'm going to read my chapter real quick and then shut my Bible and say, well, that's done, and you go into the rest of your day and you don't take time to think about it. You don't take time to think about it and literally do this to, as the scriptures had said there, to stoop down, to look closely at it, to look at the scriptures and then look at my life and ask the question, do they match? Do they match up? Because that's how the scriptures work, like that mirror that James was talking about. Except in this situation, the Bible shows me what my life should look like. And so whenever I look at in the mirror, I expect to look in the mirror and see this awesome looking dude with, fixed hair and all this stuff. And I walk in and go, whoa, who is that guy? When I wake up in the morning, it shows me what I need to fix. That's what this does. And so Enoch, but here's the thing though, I forget. I need to stoop down. I need to look at my life closely. I need to look at the scripture closely. But I forget because the world just comes at you, right? you get to like autopilot mode. You get concerned about this issue or that. What am I going to do today? What's going to happen tomorrow? How am I going to make sure that this happens? How am I going to provide for that? You know, I have that anxiety. I crave that entertainment. And I forget. And I move quickly right through the thing that I should give the most important part of my day to. I move through it a little bit too quickly. I don't give myself a chance to think about it. And ask myself, how can I fit this into my life today? What is he saying to me today? Enoch was a God walker. He was a God walker. He lived his life desiring to honor God. He wasn't just a God listener. Now the next guy, he's similar. The next guy's similar. I call this guy God follower, and I put it God follower in quotes. And I'm talking about a person that lays down their life for Jesus. I'm talking about like follower, like on social media. Okay? He follows God. Do you notice that you go on Facebook that Jesus Christ has 5.5 million followers? Yeah, you go on and you find that out. Blew me away. You know, you go on, somebody once said that when you go and you look on Facebook at people's pages and stuff, somebody once said, you're like reading their life highlight reel. He says, everybody that you know, have you noticed this? Everybody that you know, they all have perfect families, they all have perfect kids, they have perfect pets, they eat perfect food. And you know, it's all there. It's all perfect. And in this situation, God follower makes sure that you understand that they have a perfect relationship with God as well. They love all things Christian. Actually, I better put it, they like all things Christian. Okay? They like Christian music, they like Christian t-shirts, they like Christian bumper stickers, like God is my co-pilot, or if you're really pious, God is my pilot. They give God all the glory. So, and can we all just agree that that's like a little bumper sticker that kind of needs to go away? You ever thought about it? It's like you're driving a car, not an airplane. Wouldn't it be like God is my driver? You know, it's like, and then thinking, okay, well, I don't want to call God my chauffeur. That's not cool. But think about it too. Have you watched how you drive? Have you seen you drive? Think about this. You got that sticker on your car or whatever. You got your little Jesus fish on there, and that's great. Not hating on those things, but you're going down to Winston, which is what, like an hour and a half from here, okay? And you make it in an hour. Okay? Anybody ever look and say, man, Jesus made good time? He said, yeah, I know. He said he did. He made great time. He had to cut a few people off to get there. You know, he was practicing that whole last shall be first a lot, all the way down here. And apparently, the turn signal is not a part of his will. So, does anybody ever say that? You know, or you do that, and somebody gets mad at you while you're out there on the roadways and everything with your Christian bumper sticker and everything on the car, and they give you that infamous, you're number one signal. And they don't use that finger. Okay, they give it, and everything wells up in you. But it's like you can't do that. You can't encourage them in the same way. You can't encourage them the same way and say you're number one too. You can't do that because people's watching you. People's watching. Now, I'm not saying go home and take your stickers off your car so you can do that. Don't do that. Okay, I'm not telling you to do that. But God follower is all about looking and everything being right and looking like they're a believer. But sometimes they don't let that desire to like God's will and to like God and to love God flow into controlling their actions. And so while the God follower, they like all things Christian, they don't actually do things Christian. And I'm not hating on Christian, and I'm not hating on Christian shirts and Christian bumper stickers. I have Christian shirts in my own home. I have a lot more superhero shirts, but that's because I want everybody to know that I'm a superhero. And so, but no, I'm not saying go and get rid of all those. But if your Christian life begins and ends with a bumper sticker or a T-shirt, that's the full extent of your Christian walk. Then you become like that church that Jesus talked to in Revelation 3, Laodicea, when he says, you're neither hot nor cold, you make me vomit. When he says those words there in Revelation 3, and when he says, I wish that you are either cold or hot, if I can translate that for you right now, it's basically saying, I wish that if you're not going to be a sold-out God walker, stop trying to look like one, because someone might mistake you for the real thing and be turned off. I said that last week. I said a lot of the world has heard a lot about Christianity, but they've not actually seen real Christianity. Not much of it. Because how can you be turned off of love? Really? How? But that's because they've been shown something that's not quite on. And so, God follower. Enoch was a God walker. He let his love of God and God's will move him to action. So, there's that one. Now, the next one here, and this one's a sad one. The next one is God's slave. I'm not going to talk long here, but God's slave, this person, he does God's will, sort of. Okay, now, follow where we are so far. Okay, we have God listener who listens to God's will but doesn't always do it. We have God follower who likes God's will but doesn't always do it. And then you have God's slave who does God's will some but doesn't always want to. You ever heard somebody say this before? When I was growing up, I had a drug problem. They say, my parents, they drugged me to Sunday school, they drugged me to church, they drugged me to VBS, they drugged me to every other school-related function in the world. Have you ever heard somebody put it that way? I had a drug problem. My parents drugged me. Okay? And so they drugged me to church. And so now they're grown, and they have some great habits instilled in them. You know what? Maybe I was that. Maybe I had that same drug problem. I just didn't realize growing up, because I was at everything church-wise growing up. That's just how it was. And but somewhere along the way, though, it became more than a have to. And it became a desire to pursue God passionately, recklessly with my life. But the one who, God's slave, he's grown now, maybe not, but he has this. He goes and he has some religious habits. That's great and all. He goes to church on Sunday because that's what you're supposed to do on Sunday, and he puts some money in place sometimes because he feels like I'm just not supposed to. But there's no zeal, and there's no satisfaction from it. And that's what I encourage you. If there's, I'm done talking about God slave. But if you find any tendencies in your own life that are God's slaves tendencies, there's this sense of, well, I do this because I'm supposed to. I encourage you. Take a short Devo, a short Bible study, or a long one in Romans 6. Because your Christian walk, your God walk is supposed to be vibrant and new every day. Jesus died for so much more than for you to have an empty feeling, have to kind of relationship with him. Next person. And we'll be wrapping up here. Next person is God investor. Now, this one kind of sounds funny, and I want to talk about it, and you're going to be like, who talks like that, or who thinks like that? But you've seen them, and it's not just people that you might look at as crazy. In 1 Timothy 6, he says, if anyone advocates a different doctrine and does not agree with sound words, those of our Lord Jesus Christ, and with sound doctrine conforming to godliness, that attitude that desires to please God, he is conceited and understands nothing. He has a morbid interest in controversial questions and disputes about words and about the rise of envy and strife, abusive language, evil suspicions, and constant friction between men of depraved mind and depraved of the truth. This is it. These guys who are of depraved mind and depraved of the truth, they suppose that godliness is a means of gain. Godliness is a means of gain. You've seen, now I'm going to go to the extreme example on this. You've seen these people on television before. God wants you to have a new house with a 2-car garage with something new parked on both sides and a boat parked out front. God wants that for every single one of you. Have you guys had that experience? I haven't. I haven't had that experience. And I'm not saying that God doesn't want you to have nice things. I believe God wants what is best for you. And you go and look at Proverbs 30. The passage there he talks about, Lord, don't give me any more than I need, because I don't want to deny you and forget you. At the same time, only give me at least what I do need, so that way I won't steal and blaspheme your name, dishonor your name. God, in all of my experience, I've never experienced a time, I've not been in that place where it's like God says, okay, I want you to have all of these riches, but I've never experienced a time where I've ever been lacking. God's always provided what I need. It might not always be what I want, but He's always given me what I need. The God investor looks at, when they come to church, that they're kind of like, they're building up interest here in this world. God investor, I'm going to put a little bit of money in the offering plate, and they fully expect to see that check back in their bank account with interest. You say, "No, that's kind of silly." Well, no one says anything out loud. They say, "Well, I'm going to sow this so that way it'll come back to me increased." Well, then you have the extension of that view. You have the extension of the view. Sometimes it bleeds over into our day-to-day lives, and you have this whole thought process of, well, if you're a believer in Jesus, then no, your life will be generally easy, and you're never going to have any kind of like major problems come your way. Not the case. And you think, well, I don't believe that. God investor will probably say the same thing. But then something bad does happen. And then they start asking these questions, why? As if to say that their investment was supposed to pay out now, to keep those things away. Why did this happen? Was I not faithful enough? Did I not give enough? Did I not study my Bible enough? Did I not love on people enough? As if to say that those things that you did were supposed to have paid out and kept those things away. And God never promises that we're going to have perfect, easy, like smooth runway lives. He just promises that we're going to have the sufficient grace to get through it. He promises that you're going to have what you need to get through it. And so as a result, and this is what's dangerous about that whole mentality there with God investor, is that because sometimes whenever the investment doesn't pay out, whenever something bad happens, and they kind of had this mentality, a false mentality that, this was not supposed to happen to me. Everything's supposed to go all right for me because I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and I did this. Everything's supposed to be okay for me, and it doesn't. It can have a faith-shaking effect on their life. It can make them start to wonder, did I believe the right thing? Is this Christianity stuff for real or not? And then you think about Enoch. I mentioned there to you, and you see there in Genesis 5 that he walked with God. You go and you look over in Hebrews 11, it says that he had the testimony that before he was taken up, that he was pleasing to God. And then also you have in Jude. Now this is an interesting place. There's really not a lot of places that you hear about Enoch, but listen to what Enoch did while he was still on earth. God gave him a job to preach. Listen to what he said. Talking about people who live in darkness and who live wicked lives and all these things. It says, it was about these men. This is Jude 14 and 15. It only has one chapter. It says, it was also about these men that Enoch in the seventh generation from Adam prophesied, saying, Behold, the Lord came with many thousands of his holy ones to execute judgment on all and to convict all the ungodly of all their ungodly deeds, which they have done in an ungodly way, and of the harsh things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him. That was Enoch's message before he was taken up. Now, what's interesting about that hasn't happened yet. That's why I partly think that Enoch was taken up. His message was a message for another time period. That's describing Jesus coming in judgment to Armageddon, with his army of angels following behind him. It's not happened yet. It's going to happen one day. And I believe that, the one with two witnesses that it talks about in Revelation, we know one's Elijah, the only other person who didn't die. I believe the other one is Enoch, the guy who didn't die and who had a tribulation time message telling everybody during that time, God is coming to execute judgment on the ungodly. Get right. Get right. Now tell me, in that time period, that was right in the time period leading up to the flood, where it says that all the thoughts of every man was only wicked all the time, and it was a time where the world was filled with violence. Do you think his message was a popular one? No. Do you think that he struggled? Do you think that it kind of put him out a little bit to go out there and preach that message to a world that didn't survive the flood? because of the way that they lived? No. I think that it brought incredible hardship on him. I'm sure it did. And God took him out of it. But that's just it. He didn't look at, well, my faithfulness, my desire to please God is going to come back, and I'm never going to have any problems with anybody in the whole world. At least it's going to be easy peasy. He didn't have that outlook. You can see that he delighted in pleasing God. And so, here in a moment, we're going to take up our offering, and our praise team is going to get in place and all that. But and let's see. Could you guys go ahead and organize the ushers or something for me, please? We'll go ahead and we'll take up our offering here in a moment. But I just want to encourage you. Enoch was a God walker. Enoch was a God walker. He let his desire to please God. He let his desire to please God affect his life day by day. He was more than a listener. He was more than just someone who liked God's will and wanted to look like God's man. He didn't serve God under a compulsion to say, oh, yes, I have to do this. From what I see there in Genesis and in Hebrews 11, I believe that Enoch delighted in pleasing God. And delighted in serving God. And finally, because of the message that he preached, you know it didn't come back easy on him, but he kept doing it. And it said that he was faithful. He did that. It says that he had that testimony. He had the witness in Hebrews 11 that before he was taken up, he was pleasing God. So we're going to go ahead and take the offering here in just a moment. You guys can go ahead and stand to your feet. Wes, would you ask the Lord to bless our offering real quick?
Yeah, we just thank you for the day that we can talk to me in your house, God. And I pray, Lord, that you will just help us not just read our Bible, God, and read your word, God. And I pray that you will help us place that into our lives, that you will help us walk with you, God, and be able to grow and truly let you shine through us, God. And I pray that you will continue to pursue us.
If anybody has a question here in a moment about the scriptures or anything, you'll find me at the back and I'll have that for you. But I want to encourage you, if you're here, there's too many people in this world that they attempt to be a God walker before they even know Jesus. And to do things for God before you're saved means nothing to Him. It means nothing. It doesn't earn you anything. It doesn't get you into heaven, anything like that. It only matters after you have fully relied on the finished work of Jesus on the cross. His death, burial, and resurrection is complete payment for your sins. So if you're here this morning and you're like, you know what? I've been trying that whole God walking thing, but now that I think about it, I don't know if I actually ever came to the place where I trusted Him. If that's your testimony, there's no shame in it. Come see me. Come see me and I will talk about it. But for the rest of us, I want to be a God walker. I want to be a God walker. And what you didn't hear this morning, and if you did, I apologize, but what you didn't hear this morning was the pastor saying, you have to be a perfect Christian. You're going to mess up. I messed up. It's not about being perfect. It's not. It's just about being genuine. It's about being authentic. It's about trying. Because if your desire, and if you notice all of those points that we're talking about, they're all the God we were doing. The God listener, the God follower, the liker, the God slave, the God investor. It having to do with how you interact with those around you. It was more about how we can just relate to God. And in the end, our full desire should just be pleasing. So if there's any area of your life, if there's any of these tendencies of some of these that I've talked about this morning, that maybe you might identify it in your own life, now's your chance to deal with it. And this is your time. If you have questions, if you talk, I'll be right back.
How great the Father's love for us.
Jesus, I want to thank you for paying that ransom for us and loving us so much that you would go to Calvary, that you would die on that cross in place of us when it was our sin that should have held us there. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Jesus. Lord, I just pray that you would be with us this week. Lord, may we be doers and not just hearers of the word. Help us to walk with you daily. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen. I want to thank you guys for coming today. Thanks for all the visitors for visiting with us. And if you guys need any prayer or to talk to anyone, you can come meet with us or